week before I wrote the final draft of this video, and probably a few weeks before you guys actually get to see it, actor Gary Graham passed away. Now, considering he had a big role on Star Trek Enterprise, and I have a 4-part review of Season 2 that I'm just waiting for people to complete their stuff so I can post it, you might be surprised that I didn't plan to dedicate one of the episodes to his memory until I got a response to a poll I did on YouTube. And I've done it for other prominent people connected to a review in the past, most notably the great John Romita. He died while I was still watching stuff and writing the script for last year's Captain America special. Graham is a little different. Yeah, he was a good actor. His performances not only on Star Trek Enterprise, but a previous appearance on Star Trek Voyager, as well as the TV adaptation of Alien Nation, were really good. But I find that his politics were kind of questionable. Not that I have a problem with conservatives. In theory, once upon a time there were conservative voices that I might have disagreed with them, but I could understand their reasoning. Eventually we could find some kind of common ground. You don't really see that anymore. To me, the argument for not giving Graham an in memory of slide came down to this. He complained that while he was still working in Hollywood, it was becoming much harder for him. Now, admittedly, some of that might have been his age. He was in his 70s after all. But if you look at his social media, you'll see he dabbled in conservative comedy, which is really just code for attacking anyone who is different from you in any way, shape, or form, being as insulting as possible, and then laughing at the fact that you're socially stigmatizing someone who is already marginalized. Not cool. So Saval, the openly racist, paternalistic colonizer Vulcan, who eventually realizes everything he thought he knew about humanity was wrong, was an interesting character. Gary Graham did a great job with it. And I think that is worth remembering. Gary Graham? I'm not so sure. Because what made Saval so interesting was that he was willing to make that leap once provided evidence. I'm not sure Gary Graham ever did. But hey, since I'm here, maybe I should address some of my other past controversies. We snarky reviewers on YouTube have to walk a very fine line. On the one hand, we have to remain honest. We can't dilute our opinion in any way. Otherwise, we risk losing the one thing we have: our integrity. On the other hand, as comedians, we owe it to our audience to be as funny as possible, preferably without offending anyone. Now, one of the problems that can arise from it taking quite a while to produce an episode, from writing it, shooting it, getting people who weren't on site to record their stuff, and editing it together, which can sometimes take weeks or months, is that sometimes real world stuff happens. In 2023 alone, there were 3 jokes I almost cut, even when it would have disrupted the flow of a video, simply because of an unfortunate celebrity death. I didn't want to offend any of these people's friends, family, or fans. Hell, in 2.5 of those cases, I was one of the fans. The first of these was in the Benji Zax and the Alien Prince slash McKids double feature when I wrote the following joke, which Nick delivered perfectly, as he usually does.
Then they ride the pogo sticks and bouncy balls.
Paul Rubens got arrested for that, right?
So, of course, in the time it took us to shoot and edit it, Paul Rubens lost a long battle with cancer, making fun of an almost 25-year-old incident that tarnished his reputation to the point where it never fully recovered. Seemed like a bit of a low blow. But if any of you have ever seen any of Paul Rubens' stand-up, either as himself or as Pee-wee Herman, you know he wasn't above making light of the incident himself. So I figured if he didn't have a problem making fun of it, I shouldn't have a problem with it either. Next up on Jess's Sensitivity Parade, Space Command. Yeah, you're right. Radio waves travel at about the speed of light, but they're 4.24 light years away. It should take that long for a signal leaving the ship to reach Earth, and then another 4.24 years for them to hear back.
No one would watch a show where nothing happened for almost half a decade.
Are you kidding? Friends was one of the biggest hits of all time. I wrote that joke before Matthew Perry died. As for why I kept it, I really hate Friends. Up until The Neighborhood came along, I thought it was the worst long-running sitcom ever made, or could ever possibly be made. I hate Friends more than The Big Bang Theory and 2.5 Men combined. I might hate Friends, but I have to say, each and every cast member is capable of far better than that show could have ever given them. None more so than Matthew Perry. He was in a movie called The Whole 9 Yards, which I think is pretty damn funny. He could do dramatic roles as well. If you have about 12 hours to spare, I highly recommend Aaron Sorkin's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. You can see Matthew Perry channel some of his inner demons into that character, and creating something that is snarky, but hiding something heartbreaking. There's also the fact that in his memoirs, Perry said that no matter what he did with his life, he'd always be remembered for Friends. He didn't like that fact, but he accepted it. He would rather be remembered for literally anything else, but in particular a charity he formed to help people who are dealing with addiction. So, no, I don't think Matthew Perry would be offended at me for pissing on Friends for no reason. If I had insulted the cast, he would have been furious. But I didn't do that. I think they're a bunch of really good actors who did the best they could with a really shitty show. And last but not least, this clip from Space Patrol. And no, neither Andy Bowen or Jack Burke died recently. Don't be ridiculous. It's a reference to Justice League Volume 2, Number 6, co-written by Keith Giffen. He died the same day I recorded that. The influence Keith Giffen had on my sense of humor can't be understated. In my opinion, he didn't just write the greatest run on Justice League ever. He wrote one of the best runs on any superhero book ever. I really struggled with whether or not I should keep that gag. I never got to meet Keith Giffen. The people I know who did say that he would fight tooth and nail for a joke if he thought it was funny. He wouldn't cut anything unless someone higher up on the totem pole told him no. That's part of why I have so much respect for him. I felt by cutting the joke, I would avoid offending the friends and family of someone who brought me nothing but joy. But if I did cut it, I'd be insulting Keith Giffen the man, who he was and what he stood for, which is disrespectful in its own way. Fortunately, I remembered I have the email to one of his off collaborators. I asked him and he said, referencing the one punch is no way disrespectful to Keith Giffen's memory. It keeps Bwahaha alive. Look, hopefully I'll never have to do this sort of video again, but this is me we're talking about, it's sort of inevitable. Since this wasn't one of my regular sort of videos, I'm not gonna do the regular Patreon pitch. I mean, you can go to patreon.com/parodyerrorfilms and become a patron if you want, but I might throw in a few links down below to charities that the people I might have insulted in some of these clips would appreciate. If I remember. Until next time.